Elias Ward never imagined that his small joke could cause such chaos between two galaxies. He was only trying to make the dinner less serious, but in a single sentence, he managed to shake an entire diplomatic mission. He was a human engineer on the Terran ship Argus, which had traveled for months to reach the neutral borders of the Talari Dominion. It was the first human ship allowed to enter Talari space. Everyone on board had been told again and again that this meeting could decide the future of peace between the two civilizations. Elias understood that, but he never liked stiff dinners and silent meetings. To him, peace felt better when people laughed together. That night, the humans and Talari shared a grand table inside the main hall of the Argus. Bright white lights reflected on silver walls, and everything looked too perfect, too cold. The Talari delegation sat opposite the humans, their faces calm and unreadable. Their skin shone slightly under the lights, a silver tone that made them look like living statues. Their leader, Commander Sarai, was seated in the middle. She was tall, graceful, and her eyes were a deep crystal blue that seemed to look through people rather than at them. Elias had heard stories that the Talari rarely smiled. They were logical beings who believed emotion was a weakness. To them, laughter was something strange, almost unnecessary. But he had also heard that they respected honesty, and Elias was never good at hiding what he felt. The ambassador gave a long, formal speech about peace, unity, and cooperation. The Talari listened politely, blinking slowly, showing no reaction. Then they gave their own speech, full of perfect sentences but no warmth. By the time dinner began, the air felt heavy with silence. Elias sat near the end of the table, trying to find something human in all the tension. He noticed Sarai carefully slicing her meal into perfect shapes. Her every movement looked planned, like part of a ritual. He wanted to say something that could make her relax, something simple and human. So when she looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time that evening, he gave her a small grin and said, "You'd make a cute wife." The table went completely silent. Every human stopped breathing for a moment. The Talari froze as if time had stopped. Sarai's hand remained still in the air, holding a silver fork. Her eyes widened slightly, and the faint glow on her skin flickered like light on water. Elias blinked, confused by the sudden reaction. He thought maybe the translator had failed. The Talari officers whispered among themselves in their strange melodic language. Sarai turned her head slowly toward Elias. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then in a soft but clear voice, she said, "I accept." Elias blinked again. "You what?" Sarai lowered her fork and folded her hands in front of her. "You have proposed," she said calmly. "I accept your union." The human ambassador nearly dropped his glass. The rest of the crew looked from Elias to Sarai in shock. Elias opened his mouth, closed it again, and whispered to the ambassador, "I was joking." The ambassador's face turned pale. Apparently she doesn't think so. Later that night, confusion filled every deck of the Argus. Messages flew between the human and Talari fleets. Translators checked and rechecked their data, and the diplomatic team argued about what to do. According to Talari law, a spoken bond proposal, when accepted, was an unbreakable vow. It was not a casual word. It was an official agreement recognized by their society and their ruling council. To withdraw it would be considered dishonorable. Elias sat in his cabin holding his head in his hands. "All I said was one sentence," he muttered. "One tiny, stupid joke." The door chimed, and when it opened, Sarai stood there. She entered quietly, her expression calm but curious. "You seem troubled, Elias Ward." He looked up at her, half afraid, half embarrassed. "Commander, I didn't mean that as a real proposal. It was just human humor." She tilted her head. "Humor? A false statement spoken with good intent?" Her voice was calm, but there was something thoughtful behind it. "I do not understand why one would offer affection as a joke," Elias sighed. "It's just how we break the ice. When things feel too serious, we try to make people smile." Sarai's eyes softened a little. "I see. Among the Talari, words of union are sacred. When one says, 'You would make a good mate,' it is not spoken without deep consideration. That is why I accepted. I believed you saw something within me worthy of partnership." For the first time, Elias noticed something gentle in her voice, almost human. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Well, I didn't mean to insult you." "You did not insult me," she said. "You offered what you believed was kindness, even if you did not know its meaning. That is unusual. Most humans fear saying too much before the Talari." Elias gave a small, nervous smile. I guess I'm just not great at being formal. Sarai stood silently for a moment, then said, Perhaps that is why your people are different. You speak from the heart even when it causes trouble. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Do not worry, Elias Ward. I will handle the council's confusion. I will not allow your people to suffer because of this. When she left, Elias leaned back in his chair, still stunned. The strangest part was not the misunderstanding. It was the way she had looked at him when she spoke. There had been a spark of something new. Something between curiosity and warmth. For the first time in Talari history, an alien woman had accepted a human's words as truth. Elias whispered to himself, What have I done? And somewhere deep in the ship, the first bond between two very different worlds had just begun. The morning after the strange dinner, the ship Argus was in complete confusion. Every hat that meant. When the ship's morning alarm sounded, Elias groaned and forced himself out of bed. He expected to face a long day of explanations. As soon as he stepped into the hallway, 2 security officers were waiting for him. Ambassador wants you in the council room, one of them said. Elias followed them in silence. When the doors opened, he saw several humans and Talari officers gathered around the large circular table. The human ambassador, a gray-haired man named Rourke, looked tired and angry. Across from him stood Sarai, calm as ever, her hands folded neatly in front of her. Rourke spoke first. Elias, do you understand the situation you've created? Elias nodded slowly. I do, sir. But it was a misunderstanding. I didn't know what those words meant to her people. Sarai looked at him then, her expression unreadable. It was no misunderstanding, she said quietly. Among my kind, those words form a bond of honor. They cannot be taken back without shame. Rourke rubbed his temples. Commander Sarai, with all due respect, in human culture, what he said is casual, meant only to lighten the mood. Humans often use humor to ease tension. Sarai tilted her head. To speak without meaning is not a thing we practice. If your kind speaks false kindness, how can trust exist? Elias stepped forward before Rourke could answer. Commander, I didn't mean it as false kindness. I was trying to make the dinner less tense. I didn't want to disrespect you or your people. She looked at him in silence for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. Your intent was not cruel. That is clear. Yet the vow was spoken, and my people have already sent word to the Dominion Council. It cannot simply be erased. The humans around the table exchanged nervous glances. Rourke sighed deeply. Then what happens now? Sarai replied calmly. By law, we must complete the bonding trial. It will prove whether the words spoken hold truth or not. Elias frowned. Trial? What kind of trial? It is not combat, she said. It is a test of spirit and trust. A symbolic ritual, nothing more. But refusing it would bring insult to the Talari Dominion. Rourke leaned back in his chair. So if he agrees, it ends peacefully? Sarai nodded once. Yes, if the bond is proven false, it will dissolve naturally. The council will accept that the human spoke without intent. Rourke turned to Elias. Well, there's your answer, son. You take part in the ceremony, you prove it was a mistake, and we all go home. Elias sighed. Do I have a choice? Sarai's gaze softened just slightly. There is always a choice, Elias Ward. But choices shape how others remember us. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Elias gave a small, tired smile. All right, Commander. If that's what it takes to fix this, I'll do it. The meeting ended soon after, but the tension didn't leave the ship. Word of the upcoming trial spread fast. Some of the crew teased Elias, calling him the galaxy's first interspecies groom. Others warned him that he was walking into something he didn't understand. Later that evening, Elias sat alone in the viewing deck looking out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly in front of him, bright, silent, full of possibilities and danger. He wondered what Sarai truly thought of him. To her people, his joke had been a sacred offer. Yet she hadn't shown anger or insult. Instead, she had defended him before both sides. The soft sound of footsteps behind him made him turn. It was Sarai again. She walked to the window and stood beside him, her silver reflection shining faintly in the glass. You agreed to the trial, she said softly. I did, Elias replied, mostly because I don't want anyone thinking humans can't keep their word. Sarai looked out at the stars. You carry much courage for someone who did not mean his words. He smiled a little. Maybe I did mean some of them. You are strong, Commander. Smart too. I just didn't realize saying it would start a diplomatic crisis. Her eyes shifted toward him, calm but thoughtful. Perhaps not all accidents are bad ones, she said. Sometimes what begins as error becomes destiny. Elias chuckled lightly. Let's hope destiny doesn't involve more paperwork. For the first time, Sarai's lips curved slightly. Almost Commander Sarai stood beside him, dressed in her dark silver uniform, calm as ever. Her voice was steady when she spoke. You seem nervous. Elias tried to laugh. That obvious, huh? It's not every day someone gets invited to a marriage trial on another planet. Sarai looked at him with her calm, serious eyes. You should not think of it as marriage. It is a test of truth and balance. If your heart speaks honestly, the bond will fade naturally and no one will be dishonored. He nodded, though her words did little to calm him. He was an engineer, not a diplomat or a philosopher. All he knew was that a joke had turned into a galaxy-level misunderstanding. But there was something about Sarai that made it hard for him to stay upset. Despite everything, she had never treated him like a fool. She had defended him in front of her people, and even explained human humor to the Talari Council. She had done more to protect him than anyone expected. When they landed, the sight of the Talari capital took Elias's breath away. The city looked like it was built from living glass. Towering structures shimmered under twin suns, and the air itself seemed to hum softly. The people who walked the streets had the same silver skin and bright eyes as Sarai, but none of them looked at Elias with warmth. Most stared with curiosity, or quiet disapproval. Sarai noticed his unease. They are not used to humans, she said softly. To them, you are the first of your kind to step into our traditions. Many think you are here to mock us. I'm not here to mock anyone, Elias said quickly. I just want to make things right. She gave a small nod. Then you will do well. The next day, preparations for the bonding trial began. Elias was given a simple silver robe to wear, and Sarai wore a long ceremonial cloak that shimmered like starlight. The Talari temple where the trial would take place was massive and silent. Crystal pillars lined the hall, each glowing faintly from the energy that flowed within. At the center of the temple stood a circular platform surrounded by flowing streams of blue light. The Talari elders gathered around it, watching with serious expressions. The lead elder, an old being with eyes like mirrors, spoke in a deep voice. Elias Ward of Terra, Commander Sarai of the Talari Dominion. You stand before the circle of truth. If your words are honest, the bond will dissolve. If they are not, the circle will remain unbroken. Elias swallowed hard. I understand. The elder nodded, then gestured to the glowing circle. Step forward, both of you. Elias and Sarai stepped into the light. The air around them shimmered. For a moment he felt weightless, like he was standing inside a dream. Then the circle began to glow brighter and a low humming sound filled the air. The elder's voice echoed through the hall. The bonding trial will begin. You must face a shared vision, one that reveals your true connection. Before Elias could ask what that meant, the world around him vanished. The floor, the walls, even the light disappeared. Suddenly, he and Sarai were standing in a dark, endless space filled with floating fragments of light. He looked down and saw that his feet were standing on nothing at all. What is this? He whispered. A mental projection, Sarai answered calmly. It connects our thoughts and emotions. Whatever appears here comes from our hearts. A sudden rumble shook the air. Shapes began forming from the shadows. Metallic creatures with red glowing eyes walking on 4 legs. They looked like war drones built for battle. Elias could hear their mechanical growls echoing through the space. Are those supposed to be part of the test? Sarai frowned. No, this is wrong. The drones are not part of the ritual. The creatures began moving toward them. Instinct took over. Elias grabbed a glowing shard of light that had formed near him. It turned solid in his hand, becoming a blade. Guess the trial just got real, he muttered. Sarai drew her own energy weapon, her calm replaced by determination. The drones charged. Together they fought side by side. Elias wasn't trained for combat, but he was quick and clever. He used the strange energy field to confuse the drones, striking from unexpected angles. Sarai fought with graceful precision, her movements fast and fluid. They covered each other perfectly, like they had fought together for years. When the last drone shattered into light, Elias fell to one knee, breathing hard. If this is what your people call a symbolic ritual, he said between breaths, I'd hate to see a real one. Sarai helped him stand. The system malfunctioned. The test became real, but your courage was real too. Before he could reply, the dark space dissolved, and they were back in the temple. The elders were whispering in shock. The light circle around them glowed brighter than before, pulsing like a heartbeat. The elder's voice trembled slightly. The circle recognizes shared truth. The bond between you is genuine. Elias blinked in confusion. Wait, what? Genuine? I thought this was supposed to prove it was a mistake. Sarai looked at him with calm eyes, but this time there was something different. Something warm. Perhaps the circle sees more clearly than we do. The crowd of Talari fell silent. For the first time, their logic and order had no answer, and for Elias Ward, a man who never believed in fate, it suddenly felt like the universe had just played the strangest trick of all. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was still standing in the glowing circle. The world had stopped spinning, but his mind was still racing. The strange trial had ended, yet its effect remained. Around him, the Talari elders stared in silence, their expressions showing more emotion than he had ever seen before. The elder at the center of the group finally spoke. The circle of truth has spoken. The bond between Elias Ward and Commander Sarai is real. The trial accepts their union. A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. Elias stood frozen. Wait, hold on. That can't be right, he said quickly. It wasn't real. I didn't mean it like that. It was just a misunderstanding. But the elder shook his head slowly. The circle cannot lie. It reads hearts, not words. Both your spirits fought together and protected each other. That is the sign of truth. Elias turned to Sarai, hoping she would correct them, but she only looked calm, her crystal blue eyes thoughtful. Perhaps the circle saw what we could not, she said quietly. Elias rubbed his forehead. This is insane. One joke, one dinner, and now the universe thinks I'm married. The human ambassador, who had watched the whole thing in shock, stepped forward. Commander Sarai, with respect, can this decision be appealed? The human government never approved such a bond. Sarai looked at him. Among the Talari, once a bond is accepted by the circle, it cannot be broken by law. To reject it now would bring dishonor to both sides. Rourke sighed deeply. So what happens now? Sarai's voice remained calm. Now Elias Ward becomes my partner under Talari law. Our union symbolizes peace between our species. It may be accidental, but perhaps it is also destiny, as something magical about it. A soft chime sounded at his door. When it opened, Sarai was standing there. She wore a simple robe instead of her armor, her hair flowing loosely behind her. Without the uniform, she looked more human than ever. May I come in? She asked. Elias nodded and stepped aside. Of course. She entered silently, her gaze moving to the glowing city outside the window. You are troubled, she said. He gave a small laugh. Wouldn't you be? I came here to help with diplomacy, and somehow I became part of it. Sarai's lips curved slightly, almost into a smile. Perhaps diplomacy is not always found in words. He turned to face her. Tell me honestly, Commander, do you actually believe we're bonded, in your heart? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. I believe the circle shows what lies beneath the surface. You risked your life for me in that trial, even when it was only supposed to be symbolic. You acted from instinct, not duty. That means something even if you do not understand it yet. Elias frowned. Instinct doesn't mean love. I would have helped anyone in danger. Maybe, she said softly, but your eyes said otherwise. Her words left him silent. He didn't know how to respond. For the first time, he realized how different their cultures truly were. To humans, feelings were complicated, uncertain. To the Talari, truth was simple and unchanging. If they felt something, they accepted it completely. Sarai moved closer to the window. The council has decided that our bond will stand, she said. They see it as a bridge between our species. We will work together as partners to show the strength of this unity. Elias sighed. So I guess that means I'm not going home anytime soon. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. You may leave if you wish, Elias Ward. I would not hold you against your will. He shook his head slowly. No, I'm not running away. I just didn't expect my first mission to end like this. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Sarai turned toward him, her voice quiet but sincere. When you first spoke those words at dinner, I thought you were brave. You looked into my eyes without fear, even though my people often intimidate others. That courage stayed with me. Perhaps that is why I accepted. Elias blinked, surprised. You thought I was brave? I was just trying to make you laugh. Then you succeeded, she said softly. In my heart, I felt something strange that night, something warm. I did not understand it. But I do now. Elias didn't know what to say. For the first time, he saw emotion in her, a spark of real feeling hidden beneath all her control. She stepped toward the door, pausing before leaving. Rest, Elias Ward. Tomorrow the council will present us before both nations. Whatever happens next, we face it together. When she left, Elias sat by the window again. The stars outside looked closer than ever. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a quiet shift. Something new and powerful. Maybe it wasn't just a joke anymore. Maybe fate really had chosen the strangest way possible to bring two hearts together from different worlds. The next morning, the halls of the Talari capital were alive with unusual activity. For the first time in decades, humans walked openly among the silver towers, and the city watched them with curiosity. Elias felt eyes on him everywhere he went. Some Talari whispered behind their hands while others stared openly, their expressions unreadable but intense. Every glance reminded him that he had become something extraordinary, a human who had bonded with a Talari commander. He walked beside Sarai, who moved with her usual grace, completely calm despite the attention. The streets of the city were wide and polished, reflecting the sunlight in a soft, shimmering glow. Towers of crystal rose above them, catching light in every angle while the air hummed faintly with energy. Elias could not help but be amazed. Even after months of space travel and encounters with new worlds, nothing had prepared him for the beauty of the Talari homeworld. People are staring, he whispered. Sarai's eyes followed his gaze. Curiosity is natural. Your kind is strange to them, and the bond we share even stranger. He chuckled nervously. I feel like an exhibit in a museum. She gave a quiet laugh, rare and soft. Perhaps. But you are more than that. You have already proven your courage. Elias looked at her, curious. Courage? You mean during the trial? She nodded. Yes, you acted without hesitation. You protected me when it was not your duty. That is courage, even among humans. He felt a mix of pride and embarrassment. I didn't think much about it at the time. I was scared, yes, but I didn't want to let anyone get hurt. Then that is enough, she said. Her voice was firm yet warm. True courage is not about fearlessness. It is about choice. For a moment, they walked in silence, side by side. Elias had never felt this close to anyone like this before. Sarai's presence was calming, yet her thoughts seemed vast, like the sky above them, impossible to fully understand. And still, for some reason, he felt he could trust her completely. Later, they reached the council hall, a massive structure made of transparent crystal and silver metal. Inside, elders of the Talari gathered to discuss the results of the trial. Humans were allowed to witness this historic meeting, though only from the edge of the chamber. Elias felt tense. The council's decision would set the tone for the future of both their peoples. When they entered, a hush fell over the hall. Sarai stepped forward confidently, and Elias followed. The elder's eyes, reflective and deep, turned toward him. Elias swallowed hard, remembering how small he felt in this enormous alien room. The lead elder spoke first. Elias Ward, Commander Sarai, you have completed the circle of truth. The council has observed your actions. The bond is confirmed. Whispers spread through the chamber. Some Talari elders nodded approvingly, while others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. Elias glanced at Sarai, who stood tall and poised, her eyes unwavering. Your bond is unusual, the elder continued. It is the first human-Talari connection ever verified. Yet we see merit in this union. Humans are unpredictable, but your courage and honesty shine through. You have shown that cooperation between our species is possible. Elias's heart raced. He hadn't expected praise, especially not in such a formal and serious setting. Thank you, he muttered quietly, almost to himself. Sarai looked at him, her gaze soft. You do not need thanks. You acted as your heart guided you. That is enough. The council then turned to discuss the next steps. The bond would be recognized formally, but it was agreed that it would not force any immediate political action. It would serve as a symbol, proof that humans and Talari could trust each other, and that even a single human could make a difference. After the meeting, Sarai guided Elias back through the city streets. The sun had begun to set, turning the crystal towers into columns of gold and silver. The air smelled faintly of energy and ozone, and Elias realized he had never felt so alive in his life. "Do you understand now why your kind is important?" she asked. He blinked. "I think I'm beginning to." "You mean because humans do things differently?" "Yes," she said. "You do not always follow strict rules. You act based on your instincts, your feelings. That makes your kind unpredictable, but also capable of greatness. That is why the Council watches you with interest. That is why they allowed you here." Elias smiled. "I never thought my awkward joke would lead to all this. I just wanted to lighten the dinner." Sarai laughed softly. "Sometimes small actions create great change. Even humor can become a bridge between worlds." As they walked back toward the palace, Elias realized he felt something new. The fear he had carried since the dinner was slowly replaced by something else. Curiosity, admiration, and even respect. Sarai was unlike anyone he had ever met. Calm, strong, and clever, she had become more than a commander or an alien figure. Somehow she had become a person he wanted to understand, to protect, and perhaps to be close to. For the first time in weeks, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe this unexpected bond, born from a joke, could grow into something real. Something that might change not only his life, but the future of both their worlds. And as the twin moons rose above the city, their light reflected in the crystal towers, Elias felt certain of one thing. Whatever came next, he would face it with Sarai by his side. The following weeks passed in a blur of meetings, tours, and lessons in Talari culture. Elias was learning more about this alien civilization than any human had before. Sarai remained by his side at all times, not as a guard, but as a partner, teaching him the customs, the protocols, and the hidden beauty of her world. Despite the calm, a sense of tension lingered beneath the surface. Not everyone welcomed this human-Talari bond. Some elders whispered privately, suspicious of Elias's presence. Others openly questioned whether humans were truly trustworthy. Even among the human delegation, some worried that Elias had become a pawn in alien politics. One evening, during a diplomatic banquet in a grand hall of floating crystal terraces, Elias sensed that something was off. The Talari guests moved as usual, their faces unreadable, but the air felt heavy. Sarai noticed it too, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. "Stay close," she murmured. "Something is not right." Before Elias could ask what she meant, a loud explosion shook the terrace. Glass-like panels shattered, and several guests screamed as they scrambled for cover. Alarms rang out, and red warning lights reflected off the crystal towers. "Attack!" Elias shouted, instinct taking over. He grabbed Sarai's arm, pulling her behind a structural pillar. From the broken panels, drones emerged, sleek, metallic, and fast. Their red eyes glowed as they moved toward the crowd with precision. Sarai drew her weapon, energy humming along its edge. "We must protect the guests," she commanded. Her voice was steady, but Elias could hear the urgency behind it. He nodded, gripping a shard of light that had formed near the terrace floor, turning into a sharp, glowing blade. "Let's do this," he said. Together they moved through the chaos. Elias used his human instincts to anticipate the drone's movements, throwing objects to block their path and knocking some into the energy barriers of the terrace. Sarai moved like water, her strikes precise and controlled. Their teamwork was instinctive, as if their bond had already given them an unspoken understanding. A drone lunged at a group of Talari guests. Elias leapt forward, slashing at its leg, while Sarai fired her weapon to disable its targeting system. Sparks flew and the drone collapsed in a heap of metal. Amid the chaos, Elias realized that this attack was not random. Someone inside the city wanted to prevent his bond with Sarai from being accepted. The thought made him angry. Who would do this? He shouted over the alarms. Sarai's eyes narrowed. Extremists within the Dominion. They fear change, and your presence represents change. Another drone appeared from the shadows, targeting Elias directly. He barely dodged as it swung its metallic arms. Sarai's weapon hit it squarely, and it exploded in a shower of sparks. Elias's heart raced, but fear had no place in his mind. All that mattered was protecting her, and the guests, and proving that humans could rise to any challenge. Finally, the last drone was destroyed, falling silently onto the terrace floor. The alarms continued to ring, but the immediate danger had passed. Sarai checked the guests quickly, ensuring none were seriously hurt. Then she turned to Elias, her expression softening. You were brave. Once again you acted without hesitation to protect others. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. I guess instinct really does matter, he said, smiling. Sarai looked at him, her eyes reflecting the red warning lights. It does, and courage like yours. It changes how people see you. Not only humans, but Talari as well. Elias realized then that the bond between them was more than symbolic. It had become real. Their trust, their teamwork, and their willingness to face danger together had created something stronger than ceremony or law. As the human and Talari guards secured the area, the banquet hall slowly emptied. Guests whispered in awe about the human who had fought alongside a Talari commander, and how the pair had saved them all. News of their bravery would spread quickly, and Elias knew it would leave an impression not only on the city, but on the Dominion itself. Later, in the quiet of Sarai's chambers, they sat together overlooking the glowing city below. The twin moons cast soft light on the crystal towers, turning the city into a field of silver and gold. You stayed calm, Elias said quietly. Even when it was chaos, Sarai shook her head slightly. You stayed calm too, Elias Ward. You protected more than yourself. That is courage humans have, but often fail to understand fully. He looked at her, admiration rising in his chest. I didn't know if I could do it, but having you there made it easier. She met his gaze, and for a brief moment the usual formality in her eyes softened. Perhaps this bond, it is more than ceremony or law. It has grown into trust even between two very different beings. Elias nodded, a smile forming despite the lingering tension. I guess one joke led to all of this. I never thought saying one sentence could change so much. Sarai's lips curved slightly. Sometimes small actions lead to great consequences. Your words began this, but your courage strengthened it. Together we have proven something. Humans and Talari can face challenges side by side. For the first time since arriving, Elias felt a quiet hope. Danger had struck, but it had also shown him the true meaning of their bond. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he would not face them alone. Sarai was more than a commander. She was a partner, a guide, and perhaps one day, something even deeper. As the city settled into silence under the twin moons, Elias understood one simple truth. The bond they had forged was real, unshakable, and capable of facing whatever the galaxy could throw at them. The days after the attack passed quickly. Security around the Talari Council and the city increased, but whispers of distrust still lingered. Elias and Sarai worked closely, reviewing reports and learning who could be trusted. The extremists who had sent the drones were still hiding, but Elias knew it was only a matter of time before they tried again. One morning, the council summoned them to a private session. The room was large, filled with silver light reflecting off the walls, and the elders' eyes focused sharply on the pair. Elias felt tension coil in his stomach. This was no ceremony. This was a test of more than courage. It was a test of trust and proof of their bond. The extremists have been identified, the lead elder announced. They have been plotting to undermine the bond between your species. If their plans succeed, the fragile peace we have built will collapse. You must act to prevent it. Elias exchanged a glance with Sarai. Then we act, he said firmly. The council provided them with detailed information. The extremists planned to sabotage the main energy hub of the city, an act that would cause chaos and blame humans. Sarai and Elias would need to reach it first. Without hesitation, they left the council chambers, moving quickly through the city's polished streets. As they approached the hub, the first signs of tampering became clear. Sparks flickered along the walls and energy readings spiked unpredictably. Elias realized that the extremists had planted several devices, all designed to detonate in sequence. We need to disarm them quickly, Sarai said, her eyes scanning the hub. I will cover you while you work on the devices. Elias nodded, kneeling at the first panel. His hands moved carefully, guided by both his engineering skills and the intense focus the moment demanded. The seconds ticked by slowly, each one carrying the weight of potential disaster. Sarai positioned herself nearby, her weapon ready, her eyes sharp and alert. A sudden movement caught Elias's attention. One of the extremists had appeared, trying to reach the central console. Elias called out to Sarai and she moved like lightning. In one smooth motion, she intercepted the intruder, disarming him with minimal force. Elias focused back on the device, carefully disconnecting the energy flow. He could hear Sarai's calm voice behind him, giving instructions and ensuring no one interfered. When the first device was secured, he moved to the next. Together they worked seamlessly, their bond guiding them through the chaos. Finally, the last device was neutralized. Elias leaned back, breathing heavily. "That's it," he said. "We did it." Sarai looked at him, her expression serious but proud. "Yes, because we worked together, we prevented disaster. Your courage and quick thinking saved countless lives today." Elias shook his head, smiling despite the adrenaline. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You're amazing, Sarai." She looked at him, her calm eyes showing something softer than he had ever seen. "And you, Elias Ward, are more than I expected. You have grown beyond the role of human observer. Today you were my partner in every sense." The extremists were taken into custody, and the city returned to a cautious calm. Word of Elias and Sarai's actions spread quickly. Humans and Talari alike spoke of the courage and teamwork that had prevented disaster. Elias felt an unfamiliar pride. For the first time, he realized that his presence on this world had made a difference, not just in words or ceremony, but in action. Later, in the quiet of Sarai's chambers, they watched the twin moons rise above the crystal city. The light shimmered softly, reflecting in their eyes. "You know," Elias said, "all of this started because of a joke at dinner." Sarai turned to him, her lips curving into a faint smile. A joke that led to understanding, trust, and now, partnership. Sometimes the smallest actions change everything. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. "I never expected this to happen. I thought it would just be a silly mistake." "It was never a mistake," Sarai said firmly. "It was a choice, and our choices define who we are. You chose courage. You chose honesty. That is why we succeeded." He reached for her hand and she allowed it, holding it firmly. Elias realized that their bond was more than law or ritual. It was trust, respect, and something growing quietly between them. "The council will recognize this bond formally," Sarai continued. "But more importantly, we have proven that humans and Talari can face challenges side by side. That is what matters most." Elias nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Then I guess we really are partners." "In every sense," Sarai's eyes softened. "Yes, and as partners, we will face whatever comes next. Together." The twin moons reflected in the crystal towers below, casting a gentle light across the city. For Elias, it was the first time he felt truly at home on an alien world. Despite danger, misunderstandings, and challenges, he had found something extraordinary, a bond that could bridge two very different worlds. And as the stars twinkled in the night sky, Elias Ward understood the truth. A single sentence, spoken without thought, had grown into a connection that changed the course of history. A human and an alien side by side had shown courage, trust, and the power of partnership. In that moment, he knew that nothing could break what they had forged. Together they would face the galaxy, and together they would prove that even the smallest spark of humanity could shine across the stars.